ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाखाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुन् श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सार्वधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धून एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So dear devotees, welcome to this wonderful class today of Shri ISHOPANISHAD. Let me just share with you the screen for the shloka. उषाने कर्षे यम सूर्य प्रजापत्यः व्यूहरस्मिन् समूह तेजो यत्ते रूपं कल्याणतमं तत्ते पश्यमे। यो अस्व असौ पुरुषः सो अहम अस्मि। So the translation goes as follows. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher of the progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun as I am. So, this is the first paragraph. Okay. Shanti Mataji, please read this first full paragraph.
Okay. The sun and its rays are one and the same qualitatively. Similarly, the Lord and the living entities are one and the same in quality. The sun is one, but the molecules of the sun's rays are innumerable. The sun's rays constitute part of the sun, and the sun and its rays conjointly constitute the complete sun. Within the sun itself resides the sun god, and similarly within the supreme spiritual planet Goloka Vrindavan, from which the Brahmajyoti effulgence is emanating. The Lord enjoys his eternal pastimes as verified in the Brahma Samhita.
चिंतामणि प्रकल सद्म सुकल्प वृक्ष लक्षावृतेषु सुरभिरभिपालयन्तम् लक्ष्मी सहस्र संभ्रम सेव्यमानं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं Yeah, read further. Yeah, read from here.
I should start.
Yeah. This paragraph you read because it's the meaning of that particular
Yeah.
shloka.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, fulfilling all desires in abodes filled with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of wish fulfilling trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection of hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or goddesses of fortune.
Yeah, read this also, the Brahma Jyoti.
The Brahma Jyoti is described in the Brahma Samhita as the rays emanating from that supreme spiritual planet, Goloka Vrindavan, just as the sun's rays emanate from the sun globe. Until one surpasses the glare of the Brahma Jyoti, one cannot receive information of the land of the Lord. The impersonalist philosophers, blinded as they are by the dazzling Brahmajyoti, can realize neither the factual abode of the Lord nor his transcendental form. Limited by their poor fund of knowledge, such impersonalist thinkers cannot understand the all blissful transcendental form of Lord Krishna. In this prayer, therefore, Sri Ishopanishad petitions the Lord to remove the effulgent rays of the Brahma Jyoti so that the pure devotees can see his all blissful transcendental form.
Hare Krishna Mataji, you're
Mataji, you are
mute.
on mute.
Yeah. Okay. So this is actually a prayer that the devotee is actually saying to the Supreme Lord, and how his relationship with the Supreme Lord is. And when even last time I said that when prayers goes up, blessings come down. So these only prayers to the Supreme Lord will culminate into devotional service. So if you see the connection, this mantra is actually continuing, is a continuation of the mantra 15, for the Lord to reveal his spiritual form. And this time, this prayer is becoming more stronger. So, what does text 15 say? That please remove your covering. But this text is actually adding the request more intensely that, please lead, us to you yourself. So again, the devotee is feelingly appealing to the Lord to remove this Brahmajyoti effulgence, which is which is an obscuring the beautiful face of the Supreme Lord, and he's referring the Supreme Lord in different features in which he is very kind to the devotees. So because the jiva and the Supreme Lord, they are one in quality, like the sun rays and its rays. So Srila Prabhupada also quotes Jiva Goswami to again re-establish the supremacy of the Bhagwan feature of the absolute truth, which is saying that uh, as Bhagwan, Lord Krishna is the absolute truth, is very, very kind to his devotees, and he brings them, to the shelter of his lotus feet. So something which is very impersonal, the Brahma Jyoti is not able to do. So Prabhupada now will conclude with this, this purport is saying that the Lord will always help his pure devotees and giving the knowledge. The Supreme Lord will impart that knowledge within the hearts. And this is his special favor, which will diminish or dissipate the darkness of ignorance. And once the ignorance is dissipated, then the devotee will be able to see the Lord face to face. So if you see this first and second paragraph is actually the sun analogy is given. So it is beyond the Brahman. Beyond the Brahman is actually Bhagwan. So if you see the relationship of the Lord and his devotees. So when you have to see what is the relationship of the Lord and his devotees, then you need to see that what is the Lord's position, what is the living entity's position, and how the Lord deals with the living entity, or his dealings with the living entity. So the Lord's position that is there is, we know the Lord's position, okay, that he's the origin of even the Brahman also and the Paramatma also. And as in this text, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning that he's the primeval philosopher also. He creates, annihilates, he maintains this material manifestation. And also, this Brahma Jyoti effulgence is also emanating from him only. And his form is very blissful, and his all blissful, this transcendental form, uh, uh, he comes with his beautiful transcendental form to actually give enjoyment or bliss to his devotees through his leelas. So when I say that Bhagavan, the word Bhagwan means, so Prabhupada also will say actually in the future, in the next this, that Bha means one who fully maintains and who is like guardian. And Ga means one who is guiding also and leading also. And Van means uh, every living entity is in him and vice versa. So Bhagwan, the word Bhagwan means, when we, so sometimes we only know the definition of Bhagwan as like, full of six experiences. But the word Bhagavan, when you break it up into three different parts, means Bha means one who's fully maintaining and who's the guardian of all the creation that is there, or who's guiding and leading also, and uh, who is every living entity is in him. So we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So even the Supreme Lord's position as Bhagwan, as the Brahman, or as the Paramatma, how he's the ultimate controller also, he's the constant companion also, and Paramatma fully cooperates with the soul. Whatever is the desire of the soul, the Paramatma will cooperate with that, the soul. So and the living entity's position is that he desires to imitate the Lord. He's same in quality as the Supreme Lord, like the sun ray and the molecule, the example that Srila Prabhupada is giving over here. And then he's also a differentiated expansion of the Supreme Lord. So the living entity, enters into this material world, and he actually steers into this of action and reaction. Whereas when the Lord comes, he does not steer the material world into action and reaction. So, and that is making the Supreme Lord the Supreme, because he's not binded. So his relationship with the living entities, but then there is another relation, how he deals with the impersonalists also. So with the impersonalists, he's actually blinding them with his dazzling effulgence, or he gives a very poor fund of knowledge, so that they cannot see Krishna's form. They can't even imagine the Lord's favor on the devotees, and they are depending only on their own strength. They don't know that my strength is coming from Krishna. They are thinking that I only have a good strength, and I will depend on my strength to understand the Lord. So, and that is why these Brahmavadis, they cannot appreciate pure devotees' activities. They cannot understand what is service to the Supreme Lord. They cannot understand that what is to meditate on the lotus feet of the Lord. So these impersonalists, they are all the time, they then, they keep on, having this blind conception, thinking that the Lord is only a dazzling, effulgence. And with the devotees, the Lord's dealings are very, very different. So the devotee knows that the Lord is my maintainer, He is my ever well wishing guide, and the Lord is going to award me according to whatever uh, activities I'll be doing, or serving. So, so for example, if a particular leader is there, then he will award his, subordinates. So similarly, since the Lord is the leader of the devotees, the Lord also awards his devotees. And as the creator, he is bestowing necessary even qualifications also. So according to your qualification, then you upgrade yourself. So the devotees also in return are very fully attached to the Lord. The devotees are completely chaste to the Lord. The devotees don't drift away. It's not like that okay, I will dangle, or I will be dangling between the demigods and the Supreme Lord. No. So it is just the Supreme Lord, and they do not know anybody other than the Supreme Lord. And because they are very loyal and they are chaste to the Supreme Lord, then these pure devotees can experience the most auspicious feature of the Supreme Lord. And as a favor, कि भाई अब मैं बिक चुका हूं, I'm sold to these devotees. So as a special favor, the Lord will dispel the ignorance of the devotees. And that's how the whole ignorance of that particular devotee will be removed. So this mantra, if you see, is an excellent example of Achintya Bheda, the Bhed Tattva in action. So where it's, the impersonalists, they are saying that Soham Asmi, So impersonalists will, use to say that I and God are same. But over here we are saying that Rupam Kalyan So, which means that the devotees or the personalist will use that that this particular quality that is there will give me auspiciousness. So Soham Asmi will actually refer to this qualitative oneness. So now in this particular, the first and the second paragraph, if you see that Srila Prabhupada in the purport is mentioning that the sun and its rays are one and the same qualitatively. And that's why the Supreme Lord and the living entities are also same in one and the same in quality. So qualitatively, how? That the Supreme Lord is Sat, the devotees are also Sat, or the living entities are also Sat, Chit and Anand. All these three qualities the Supreme Lord also has, and all these three qualities even the living entities have. Then the Lord is also fully independent, and that is why he made the living entities also fully independent. Fully independent in the sense that you can desire what you want to do. The Supreme Lord is not going to interfere into your independence or your free will. So qualitatively, that's why it's said that the living entities and the Supreme Lord are one. But quantitatively, then the Supreme Lord has 64 qualities and the Jivatma has 26 qualities. If you say in full, like the demigods have 55 qualities. Vishnu Tattvas have 60 qualities that way. So the sun is one, but the molecules of the sun rays are innumerable. So the sun rays is like, the part of that sun, and the sun and its rays, they will they are actually forming that complete sun. So within the sun also, the sun god is also residing, and similarly within the supreme planet, that is the Golok Vrindavan, from where actually the origin of the Brahma Jyoti is actually from Golok Vrindavan. That Brahma Jyoti effulgence is coming from Golok Vrindavan. So until one is passing to this, glare of Brahmajyoti, one cannot receive any information about that that supreme law land of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is why Prabhupada is saying that the impersonalists are always blinded by the dazzling effulgence of the Brahmajyoti, and they can never realize that there is the supreme abode of the Supreme Lord, where he is eternally performing his transcendental pastimes in his transcendental form. So this particular prayer, it is actually, that is why saying it's a petition. It is petition, yani कि हम request कर रहे हैं that please, remove your effulgent rays of the Brahmajyoti so that I can see your blissful transcendental form. This is what actually is being said into this particular 2 paragraphs. That's what Prabhupada is saying. So let's see the next paragraph. Yeah, Indrayani Mataji, please read this paragraph.
Yes, Hare Krishna Mataji. By realizing the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, one experiences auspicious aspect of the Supreme, and by realizing the Paramatma, or all-pervading feature of the Supreme, one experiences an even more auspicious enlightenment. But by meeting the personality of Godhead himself face to face, the devotee experiences the most auspicious feature of the Supreme, since he is addressed as the primeval philosopher and maintainer and well-wisher of the universe. The Supreme Truth cannot be impersonal. This is the verdict of Sri ISHOPANISHAD. The word Pusan, maintainer, is especially significant for although the Lord maintains all beings, he specifically maintains his devotees. After surpassing the impersonal Brahmajyoti and seeing the personal aspect of the Lord and his most auspicious eternal form, the devotee realizes the absolute truth in full.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mataji. So, Vrinda, can you please read this paragraph?
Yes, Mataji. In this Bhagavad Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami stated, the complete conception of absolute truth is realized in the personality of Godhead because he is the Almighty and possesses full transcendental potencies. The full potency of absolute truth is not realized in Brahmajyoti. Therefore, Brahman realization is only partial realization of the personality of Godhead. O learned sages, the great syllable of the word Bhagwan, Bha has a 2 meanings. The first is one who fully maintains, and the second is a guardian. The second syllable Ga means guide, leader, or creator. The syllable Van indicate that every being lives in him and that he also lives in every being. In other word, the transcendental sound Bhagwan represent infinite knowledge, potency, energy, opulence, strength, and effluence, all without a think of material inability.
Yeah, that is this word is influence. Okay, thank you so much. So I think Brinda Mataji is the new student who has joined in. Yes, Brinda Mataji, you are the new student who has joined in.
Yes.
Yeah, so we welcome Brinda Mataji to the class. So she'll be actually joining from Nectar of Instruction. I've told her that she will have to repeat the ISHOPANISHAD classes because we're just towards the end of the ISHOPANISHAD classes. So welcome to the class and welcome to the family of Bhakti Shastri. Okay. So then now over here in these, in this third paragraph, if you see, that he's talking about the Bhagwan realization, that how this Bhagwan realization is most, auspicious. Why is the Bhagwan realization most auspicious? Because he is the highest and the best destination, and he helps the devotees by bestowing his grace. So we say, no, Krishna ki kripa hui mujh pe. So who is giving that mercy? The Supreme Lord is only giving that mercy. So when I say Bhagwan realization, means what? Bhagwan realization is you experience, there is the, how will I put it? Bhagwan realization means experience of auspicious aspect of the Lord. The Paramatma realization will be the aspect, experience of the most auspicious aspect, more auspicious aspect of the Lord, and the Bhagwan realization will be the experience of the most auspicious aspect of the Lord. So that is why, since the Lord is addressed over here as the primeval philosopher and maintainer and the well-wisher of the universe, the supreme truth then cannot be impersonal. So this is actually what Sri ISHOPANISHAD is trying to say, because he's the maintainer also. This word that is there, this word Pushan that is there, that is very significant. So although the Lord is maintaining all the living beings, but he is specifically maintaining his devotees also. So in Bhagavad Gita, where he's saying that Krishna is saying that bhakti very easy. Suppose like if I fall in a ditch, then trying to come out on my own efforts is exactly like, trying to reach the Supreme Lord without any help of any scriptures. So these scriptures are like ropes, and the devotee, prays to the person who's above, who's pulling the rope. And then the jnanis also are there, the yogis also there. They are also trying to climb that rope by their own effort. But in bhakti, there is jnana also, knowledge also is there, that okay, I am not this body. And in bhakti, there is taste also. Oh, if I serve Krishna, there is so much mercy and bliss and grace also. So this third paragraph is primarily speaking of the three aspects of this realization. And in the fourth paragraph, then the more analysis of this word Bhagwan is there, where we know that Bha means, who is the guardian also, and who is the maintainer also. Ga means who's guiding also, and who's the leader also. And actually, Bha means Bharata, and Ga means Gamyate. So, Gamyate means one who actually takes us to a particular destination. And Van means Vas. Vas means one who resides. So, this Bharta, who's there, who's taking us to a particular destination where he himself is residing. And this is what is actually said in this third and fourth paragraphs. Let's see the next paragraph. Is everybody able to see the screen?
No, Mataji.
Okay, just 1 minute. Yeah, I think now you're able to see. Okay. Yeah. Nivedita Mataji, please read this paragraph.
Yes, Mataji. The Lord fully maintains his unalloyed devotees, and he guides them progressively on the path towards devotional perfection. As the leader of his devotees, he ultimately awards the desired results of devotional service by giving himself to them. The devotees of the Lord see the Lord eye to eye by his causeless mercy. Thus, the Lord helps devotees reach the supermost spiritual planet, Golaka Vrindavan. Being the creator, he can bestow all the necessary qualifications upon his devotees so that they can ultimately reach him. The Lord is the cause of all causes. In other words, since there is nothing that caused him, he is the original cause. Consequently, he enjoys his own self by manifesting his own internal potency. The external potency is not exactly manifested by him, for he expands himself as the Purusas, and it is in these forms that he maintains the features of the material manifestation. By such expansions, he creates, maintains, and annihilates the cosmic manifestation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. So now over here, if you see in this paragraph 5th, Bond is saying there are two topics. Okay, where in one way he's saying that Krishna is guiding his devotees to him, and then he's saying about the nature of the Supreme Lord also. So where when you say the word Ga means what? The Lord is fully maintaining his unalloyed devotees. He's guiding them also progressively on the path towards devotional perfection. And as a leader also of his devotees, he ultimately awards these desired results of devotional service by serving him to them. And he's being the creator, he's bestowing all necessary qualifications also. And he's consequently he enjoys his own self by this, manifesting his own internal potency. So the external potency is not exactly manifested by him, for he expands himself, all these purushas that are there. And he's maintaining the features of this material manifestation also. So over here, that is why it is said that how Krishna is guiding his devotees to him. Means भगवान अपने डिवोटीज को अपने पास कैसे लेकर आ रहे हैं, स्वयं ही कैसे लेकर आ रहे हैं. So this paragraph primarily speaks about these two topics. Let's see the 6th and the 7th paragraphs, or the 6th paragraph. Yeah. Sushil Prabhu, please read this paragraph.
Hare Krishna Mataji. The living entities are also differentiated expansions of the Lord's self. And because some of them desire to be Lords and imitate the Supreme Lord, he allows them to enter into the cosmic creation with the option to fully utilize their potency to lord it over nature. Because of the presence of his parts and parcels, the living entities, the entire phenomenal world is stirred into action and reaction. Thus, the living entities are given full facilities to lord it over material nature. But the ultimate controller is the Lord himself in his plenary features as Paramatma, the Supersoul who is one of the Purushas.
Yeah, please read this paragraph also, Prabhu. It's a small.
Thus, there is a gulf of difference between the living entity Atma and the controller of God, Paramatma. The soul and the supersoul, Paramatma is the controller, and Atma is the control. Therefore, they are in different categories. Because the Paramatma fully cooperates with the Atma, he is known as the constant companion of the living being. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, see, such a nice sense in that he's known as the constant companion of the living being. But we don't realize, so at least I'm talking about myself, that I really don't realize that every time Paramatma is there with me as my constant companion. So in these two paragraphs, if you see, the jivas and his differentiated expansions are given. These jivas, they are desiring to be Lord, and the Lord allows them, but ultimately he is with them as the Paramatma and as the control. So if you see, the living entities are also differentiated expansions of the Lord. So when the impersonalists say Soham, Soham means I and God are one, but the devotees say Daso Aham. So oneness in quality may be emphasized at times, but that doesn't deny the difference in quantity. So the living entities also, are, expansion of the Supreme Lord, which are differentiated. And because some of the living entities, they want to lord it over, or they desire to be the Lord, and they are imitating the Supreme Lord. So this is allowing them to enter into this creation and utilize also their full propensity to lord it over the material nature. And because we living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, so the entire this cosmic manifestation, this phenomenal world, is actually stirred into action and reaction. And if you see in the Durgama Sangamani Tika, Jnana refers to actually, there are three things of Jnana, like, Gyan related to Atma, Gyan related to Ishvara also, and Gyan related to Ekatva also. So this, the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, that Tika of Srila Jiva Goswami, is rejecting this oneness jnana, and it is focusing on that jnana which will bring the living entity closer to Krishna. So there are two types of jnana actually. One is the favorable jnana and one is the unfavorable jnana. Favorable yani pratikula. So why is this jnana pratikul to bhakti? Which jnana is pratikul to bhakti? So one aspect of jnana is constitution. Like constitution means that jnana which will have an adverse effect when you say that there is oneness in the jiva and the Supreme Lord. So this oneness denies the eternality of bhakti. Why? Because what do the impersonalists say? That the jiva enters into the Supreme Lord. Then where is individuality, considered? Where is the individuality of the soul there? अगर वो अंदर merge ही हो जा रहे भगवान में, तो वो अपनी individuality खो देते हैं, right? So oneness denies eternality of this bhakti. And when the jnanis are taking this particular jnana, and when they apply this particular jnana of oneness, then actually their hearts become hard. And then they're thinking that, okay, I have only one destination, that is merging into the Supreme Lord. And then that is, is the end of bhakti. So that is why in Srimad Bhagavatam, so many times the devotees will pray that I prefer to go to hell if I get this opportunity, to chant your name. So they give up this urge to merge. Devotees do not want to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord. So their desire is to serve more. So then how can this jnana be favorable or anukul to bhakti? So the constitutional position of the jiva is that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Okay, so in that it is it is emphasized about the subordination of the Supreme Soul. And then when you are applying this particular jnana which is favorable to bhakti, then what will happen? You will be actually you will stabilize yourself in your bhakti practices also. You will not waver into your bhakti practices. And then the final destination will be that you will be able to appreciate the Lord's glories, the Lord's pastimes, the Lord's name, the Lord's form. So this is what actually is said into these two paragraphs, that there is one gyan that is favorable and there is one gyan that is not favorable or unfavorable. So the Gyanis or the impersonalist, they are actually taking that Gyan which is unfavorable to the to bhakti. Their Gyan is not favorable to bhakti. So this is what has been actually said into these two paragraphs. Let's see with the next paragraph what is being said. Rup Manohar Prabhu, please read this paragraph.
Sure, Mataji. The all-pervading feature of the Lord, which exists in all circumstances of waking and sleeping, as well as in potential states and form, from which the Jiva Shakti, the living force, is generated as both conditional and liberated soul, is known as Brahman. Since the Lord is the origin of both Paramatma and Brahman, He is the origin of all living entities and all else that exist. One who knows this engage himself at once in the devotional service of Lord, such as pure and fully cognizant devotee of Lord is fully attached to him in heart and soul. And whenever such a devotee assemble with similar devotee, they have no engagement but the glorification of Lord transcendental activities. Those who are not perfect as a pure devotee, namely those who have realized only the Brahman or the Paramatma feature of Lord, cannot appreciate the activities of perfect devotee. The Lord always helps the pure devotee by imparting the necessary knowledge within their heart, and thus out of his special favor he dissipates all darkness of ignorance. The speculative philosopher and yogis cannot imagine this because they are more or less depend on their own strength, as stated in the Katha Upanishad 1.2.23. The Lord can be known only by whom he favors, not by anyone else. Such special favors are bestowed upon his pure devotees only. Sri Upanishad, ISHOPANISHAD thus points that to the favor of Lord, which is beyond the purview of the Brahma Jyotir.
Yeah. So, this word, Brahman, I remember when I was new to Krishna consciousness, I used to pronounce this as Brahman. Okay. And there is another word called Brahmin. Okay, the Brahmanas, the Brahmins. Okay. But this Brahman is actually the, impersonal feature of the Lord. And then there is another word. I used to get very confused with these three words: Brahman, Brahmin, Brahmanas, and this. But now, as and when we get acquainted, or as and when we get used to these words, so if you see, wherever the diacritics are there, if it's a long A, over here, if you see Paramatma, A, there is a slash. And Atma, A, there's a slash. So now when we are pronouncing normal A's in the Sanskrit, then it is Brahmana. It is not Brahmana. So So this is what even I took a very long time to understand these dialectics of the Vaishnava philosophy, that it is Brahman. So Brahman is different, Brahman is different. Brahmin and Brahman, they both are the same, because when we say Brahmanas and Brahmins, that is the same. Like some people pronounce it as Brahman, some people pronounce it as Brahmin. But this Brahman is different. Okay, so we should not mix these. And it is good that in the initial stage there is some confusion, and that confusion gets solved as and when we keep on taking some knowledge or the other. So now in this particular paragraph, what is actually Prabhupada trying to say is that Bhagwan can be known by only those people whom the Supreme Lord favors. अगर आप उनके फेवरेट लिस्ट में आते हैं तो आप भगवान को जान सकते हो. भगवान की कृपा आप पर बरस गई तो आप उनको जान सकते हो. तो उन्हीं को समझ में आएगा कि भगवान कौन है. So this so it is actually that this all pervading, that is feature of the Supreme Lord, it is existing in all situations, whether you it's in the waking situation or it is in a sleeping situation, and all these potential states that are there, the waking state or the sleeping state, then this all pervading feature is existing that time also. So now this Jiva Shakti is generated as both the conditioned souls also and the liberated souls, and that is known as Brahman. So this is very interesting statement, that the Lord is the origin of both Paramatma also and the Brahman also. He is the original of all the living entities also, and whatever is existing, he is the origin of that also. So those devotees who are engaging in the service of the Supreme Lord, then they know this particular feature of the Supreme Lord as the Paramatma also, as in the Brahman feature also. And anybody who is who fully knows about the Supreme Lord, or who's fully aware about the Supreme Lord, then such a devotee is very, very much attached to the Supreme Lord in heart and soul. So whenever such devotees, where even Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, mat chitta matagata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantis cha mam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So such devotees, when they are assembling, then what will happen? That they will have the same mood. They will only glorify. Mat chitta matagata prana bodhayantasma parasparam kathayanchana. What will they do when they are assembling? Katha, meri katha karenge. So they have no other activity. Wahan pe bhi, in the spiritual world, they have no other engagement but to just glorify the activities of the Supreme Lord. So if you see even Mother Yashoda in the spiritual world, what is she doing? When she is actually churning the butter, she is actually singing the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. She is glorifying the Supreme Lord. So, and those who are not as perfect as the pure devotees, then they will, and those who have only realized this Brahman and Paramatma feature of the Lord, then these two category of people, they cannot appreciate only the activities of the pure devotees or the perfect devotees. तो अब जो है भगवान की एक्टिविटीज को पर्याप्त मात्रा में अप्रिशिएट करने के लिए, सराहना करने के लिए हमें क्या करना चाहिए? हमें उनके गुणगान करने चाहिए, हमें उनके नामों का जप करना चाहिए, उनके गुणगान करने चाहिए. सो गुणगान किसका करना चाहिए? सॉरी, आई एम जस्ट वेंट इनटू द हिंदी मोड. सो the glorification will be of what? The glorification will be of his name, form, pastimes, and of his Guna, Rupa, Leela, activities bhi hai unki. So you will glorify, these things of the Supreme Lord. So the Lord cannot be, can be known only by that person whom the Lord will favor upon, and not by anyone else. So if the Lord has favored a particular devotee, then that devotee can know the Supreme Lord. So Srila Prabhupada, says that you may see the sky and say, "Oh sky, I love you." But how can you love the sky? So you may get some peace. So similarly, this Brahman is everywhere. How will you love it? So you need some person to love. Okay, I cannot say, "Oh laptop, I love you." But the laptop is not going to respond to your love. But when you love a person, that person is reciprocating with you and responding you. So similarly, when you love the Supreme Lord, then there is some loving exchanges between you and the Supreme Lord. So that is why chanting is both prayer and fulfillment of the prayer. So what we do, we pray for service and serve the name by chanting respectfully and with very clear pronunciation. So there is a saying that if miracles are the criterion, then circus will be the testing ground. People want miracles, but then there is a testing ground also. So there was one young girl, she said that, Swamiji, when I chant, I see a white light. So then Prabhupada says that keep chanting, the light will go away. So devotional service itself is the answer to that prayer. आपको और सेवाएं मिल रही है means only the Supreme Lord is answering to those prayers. जितनी आपकी सेवाएं बढ़ते जाएगी, जितना आपका appreciation भगवान के लिए बढ़ता जाएगा, means what the Supreme Lord is answering to your prayers of chanting. The more you get services, you just should think that Krishna is. Sometimes people think, इतनी सारी सेवा है मुझे लाद दी, ये कंधे पे भी सेवा है, वो कंधे पे भी, और सर पे भी रख दिया है. But no, getting more services. And see, these things, they start with a very subtle thing. Like, for example, I'll tell you. Yesterday I was cooking in the kitchen, and this coconut that is there, when you break it into two halves, the hard one, it needs to be, grated. But there is a grating electric machine that we have, and which I am not very expert, because a little here and there, your hand, gets cut. So I'm pretty, fearful about my hand getting cut. So there was one Prabhuji who is, I think, first initiated, and he was washing vessels over there. And I just asked him that, Prabhuji, can you do this? Because I'm not so expert in that. And he said, yes. So then the moment he said yes, I just realized that even for a menial service, he did not deny it. So he had watched, because when you go for Rajbhog Seva, before that even Mangal Bhog Seva is there, and the Mangal Bhog Seva also, there are a lot many vessels over there. And he had just completed washing the vessels, and he was wiping his hand, and I said that, Prabhuji, can you please, do this? He did not deny and immediately did. And then I just said that, sorry, Prabhuji, I just ate up your time. You could have gone up and attended the lecture. But he said, no, Mataji, this is a very nice service. You're giving me direct service of the Lord. So I realized that, I realized that what a good consciousness this person has. That I just gave him a 5-minute service, and he was jubilant even with that 5-minute service. He did not take it as a burden. He took it as actually, the mercy of the Lord. So this is the, what do you say? This was his perspective, or his way of seeing how the mercy of the Lord is actually coming through, that particular service of greeting. So then for me, I learned very nice this, that next time, even if I am given some service, then even I should not say whether it is a coconut grating service or even just cutting maybe some coriander leaves or something like that. So this is what actually this last paragraph is actually speaking about. So in essence, this particular mantra is actually the devotees praying along with realizing the form of the Lord, to also realize the Supreme Lord's own position or his own position in relation to the Supreme Lord. So the living entities, they are compared to the sun rays, and they are qualitative the same as the Lord. And we saw the word Bhagwan, how the word Bhagwan is actually completely elaborated and all. And the impersonalists are blinded with the Brahma Jyoti. They cannot realize the land and the Lord and the form of the Lord. They cannot even realize who is the supreme truth. And the supreme truth cannot be impersonal at all. And that's how the word Bhagwan has, he's the maintainer, he's the guide, he's the creator, he's the leader. And between the Atma and the Paramatma, there is a gulf of a difference. And Brahman and Paramatma, realizations, people, those who have this realization, they cannot appreciate the activities of the pure devotees. So this is what is being said in this particular text that is there. And more is that how is he appealing to the Lord? How is he requesting to the Lord? So now in the 17th mantra, 17th and the 18th mantra, both these mantras will speak about, give me protection against imperfection. So the sincere devotees will always say that, please, I don't want to be imperfect. I want to be a perfect devotee. I want to actually practice more. So he will pray more for, practicing the limbs of devotional service. So let's go and see what is the next mantra.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah.
Mataji, are we done with this mantra?
Yeah. We are done.
Mataji, can I ask one question, if it is possible?
Sure.
Mataji, I think we just discussed that Bhagwan can be known only by those who are only by those whom the Supreme Lord favors, right?
Yes.
So then I was just wondering that, we know so many of them who might have been born in some exterior or some very interior part of the world, who've never have had this great fortune of even knowing who Krishna is, and they just left their bodies. Couldn't even meet any devotee. So then why is it that Lord would not want to favor them in such a situation? That why is it that others did get, they might have got some prasadam or some darshan, but they didn't. So what is their fault if they didn't see Krishna or even got to know about Krishna and they left?
Yeah, good question. Nice question. So actually when somebody is asking a question, हमारा भी thought process जो है ना वो activate होना शुरू हो जाता है. So Saiba's question, Saiba asked the question, right?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. So Saiba's question is a question of compassion. Maybe she is a very compassionate soul कि अरे ये भक्त नहीं बन पाया और वो भक्त नहीं बन पाया. But let us understand that why did that particular person in some remote corner of the world did not get the favor of the Lord, the mercy of the Lord? It is because of his own desire he did not get the mercy of the Lord. So if the living entity desires that, there is some supreme power and I need to bow down to that supreme power, I need to submit to that supreme power, then immediately the Lord facilitates as the Paramatma. Lekin jab tak the living entity wants to lord it over the material nature, he wants to actually just enjoy, then the Lord, how can the Lord also facilitate it? Because the Lord has given us the independence of what do you say, or the free will the Lord has given us, that whether you want to come to me or you don't want to come to me. Full independence has been given. And that is why such, innocent souls are bereft of Krishna's mercy. They do not get because of their own free will. They want to still enjoy, enjoy, and enjoy. They have no tinge about who God is and how can I approach God, because many times they only think that there is no life beyond death. They think that this is only, all in all. And there are many other factors also, but primarily these are the things that the living entity thinks, and that is why they are bereft of the Lord's mercy. Okay, Saiba?
Okay, Mataji, thank you so much.
Yeah. Anybody else would like to ask any question, or then else we move to the 17th text? Okay, so we just move to the 17th text. So, Vayur Anilam Amritam Athedam Bhasmantam Sariram Om Karato Smara Kritam Smara Krato Smara Kritam Smara. So now we are saying that let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, O my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices. And because you are ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. So, somebody just read this purport. Matsyendra Prabhu, please read this purport. I mean, this first paragraph.
Yes, Mother. The temporary material body is certainly a foreign dress. The Bhagavad Gita 2.20 clearly says that after the destruction of the material body, the living entity is not annihilated, nor does he lose his identity. The identity of the living entity is never impersonal or formless. On the contrary, it is the material dress that is formless and that takes a shape according to the form of the indestructible person. No living entity is originally formless, as is wrongly thought by those with a poor fund of knowledge. This mantra verifies the fact that the living entity exists after the annihilation of the material body.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Matsyendra Prabhu is actually very senior to me in age, and he's a very, very busy person. I think, Prabhuji, you are from the Navy, right?
No. I am a retired automobile specialist. Now I'm in Dubai now at the moment.
Okay. So we have Parthasarathi Govind Prabhu also from Dubai. He's also residing in Dubai. So if you know him.
I am in Muscat actually.
Okay. He's in Muscat. Okay.
Man.
So these devotees are, imagine so sincerely everybody is attending the Bhakti Shastri classes and very regularly, okay, means they are logged in 5 minutes before class. So thank you so much for your interest shown in these classes and in your interest shown in the Supreme Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah. So now if you see the connection between the 16th and the 17th shloka will be that after praying for realization for this knowledge given, the devotee is praying for the Lord to accept his spiritual practices or his service. So if you see that, he's praying that, Lord, for spiritual life, I am actually depending on you. So you please be there always to guide me as a friend, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I am a ever well-wishing friend of every living entity. So the devotee is furthermore actually, praying that please help me to remember my service to you. And this devotional service only will surpass, for us at the time of our final examination, that is death. So over here, there is this word called Om Krato Smara Kritam Smara. Okay, so this connection that is there, this prayers of the devotee, they continue again, from 15th mantra it is continuing. Okay, now at this particular 17th mantra, this prayer is emphasizing more on understanding Krishna at the time of death. So see, we all definitely one or the other day we have to leave our bodies. So then if we understand this mantra, then at the time of death, the death will be very very smooth. We not have too much of difficulty while leaving this body. So while actually the 17th mantra is there, it's the devotee is actually praying to abandon these all temporary material bodies, and he's begging the Lord that he should remember all the sacrifices that has made, and all the services that he has done. So we have been given these material bodies according to our own desires, but actually these bodies are actually foreign coverings for this eternal soul that we are. So why it is being given? Because so that we may develop this desire for spiritual life. And this devotee constantly is engaging in the service of the Lord. So the Lord also blesses such a devotee who has spiritual realization, so that the devotee's material attachment keeps on decreasing and his spiritual attachment keeps on increasing. So spiritual activities and devotional service, they begin with two things. One is hearing and chanting of the Supreme Lord. So this material body is like in the first paragraph saying that it is like a body which is a foreign dress, and this body should be given up. So now if you see in this whole text, this whole concept of how to transcend this bodily death, because the death is not for the soul, the death is only for the body. So when you are giving up this body, giving up this material body, then you will be accepting a spiritual body. And then the relationship between with the Supreme Spirit, how is your relation with him? So when a particular person is giving up the material body, so firstly let's understand that how the material body is created. It is created according to our own propensities of sense gratification. Like for example, the hog, for him, he wants to actually love eating dirty things, so then he's given a body of hog and he eats stool. Or if somebody wants to eat flesh, then he's given the body of a tiger. Then what happens after death of the body? The living entity is not annihilated, वो खत्म नहीं हो जाता है, or he does not become formless. The living entity continues to exist. So he will keep on changing different bodies, either the body of a vegetable or a worm or a bird or an animal or a human being. So somebody might question that why so many changes the living entity is actually going through, and why so many species. If you see, there are 84 million species. Why so many changes? So then these changes are because of the different desires of sense gratification. So say for example, somebody is too much sexually attracted, or he has a desire of actually sex, then he's given the body of a pigeon or a dove, because they have this pigeons or the dove, they have this, this capacity of doing it 12 times in 1 hour. So, okay, you enjoy that way. So then somebody that might ask that, okay, this particular human being has this propensity of, what do you say, changing different bodies. But then how does this particular yogi who's actually meditating, how does he actually change? So then he can change by controlling the movement of his body. Then when his life air actually he takes those chakras right to this head, then from this Brahmarandhra actually he leaves his body. He raises this whole process to the Brahmarandhra, and then he's transferred to another planet. So then somebody like that, okay, when will this chakra, or when will this cycle stop? This cycle can be stopped only when somebody or the living entity will develop a spiritual body, and when he enters into the spiritual atmosphere. So then, okay, for example, now this particular living entity, he develops this spiritual body and he enters into the spiritual realm or the atmosphere. Then what? After accepting the spiritual body, then what happens? Then, or somebody might ask that, how does the living entity, get a spiritual body? And when does he does not get a spiritual body? So see, when he will desire to lord it over the material nature, he will not get a spiritual body. When he'll desire to be one with the Brahma Jyoti or the Brahman effulgence, he'll not be, get a spiritual body. Or he actually is under the influence of the material nature, then he'll not get a spiritual body. But when will he get a spiritual body? When, his spiritual services reach to a particular point of perfection. When he understands that Vasudevam Sarvaiti, he surrenders to the Supreme Lord. Sarva Dharma Parityajya Mamekam Sharana. Or when he will accept that, okay, I am a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. When he will pray to the Lord for remembering his service at the time of death. And then the Lord also will not forget him. So this relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are many facilities for the devotees also. And these facilities are not there for the impersonalist. They're only for the devotees. So what are those facilities for the devotees? Then the facility for the devotee is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Arjanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. So you choose any of the 9 processes, perfect that, and you go back to Godhead. You don't have to follow all those 9 processes. For example, Shravanam. So if you're just focused on Shravanam, then you can perfect Shravanam. Like Parikshit Maharaj perfected Shravanam. Shukdev Goswami perfected Kirtanam. That way. So, and then you will develop a very intimate relationship with the Lord. And how will the Lord accept also this relationship? So he will accept because his devotees that are there, the devotional service will increase to the proportion the worldliness or the worldly attachments and worldliness of this material world will keep on decreasing. Automatically, when you start attaching to the Supreme Lord, then you will start detaching from the material world. And you will be fixed in your determination also. And all the imperfections that are there, your anarthas are there, the imperfection of the senses that are there, that all will end very, very shortly. So then these are some of the benefits of the devotion service, that he will utilize these benefits at the time of death, and the body will not be dislocated at the time of death, and then he'll be able to pray also at the time of death. So then there are many other things also, that how can he develop his relationship with the Supreme Person? So he can develop by avoiding all, things like, restricting himself with sleep, with gambling, with illicit sex, intoxication, and then too much of earning. He has no time for God. So he can avoid all these situations, these modern situations that we there. And not to only completely neglect the existence of the Supreme Lord, he can develop his relationship with the Supreme Lord by hearing and chanting, by doing services, and not waste even a nanosecond other than the service of the Lord. So every time a devotee is actually checking that, am I in Krishna's service or in Maya's service? Am I in Krishna's service or Maya's service? So, because this material body is like a foreign dress and we need to give up this dress. So, what is the attitude of a devotee, or attitude of a devotee towards his body? He will, so you have, at two extremes. One is karma, you romanticize with it. You have jnana, you, demonize it. Oh, jnana is like, this, too much this. But then, if I have a middle thing, if you have the pendulum, two extremes, one is karma, one is jnana. But let's see that this karma and jnana I can utilize in bhakti. So karma means activities and jnana means knowledge, right? So I get the jnana that, okay, I have an eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. I am subordinate to the Supreme Lord. I am his eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. I get this jnana. Then what do? Because I'm a part and parcel, because I'm subordinate, because I am the servant of the Supreme Lord, then what will be my karma? My karma will be to serve him. And that's why karma and jnana both are required in bhakti. And this is what the jnanis actually fail in this, that they don't understand that how karma and jnana both can be utilized in this. So this art of leaving the body is that the body will give us up, but we will not give up the body. Means what? This bodily attachment. Till our subtle body becomes purified. So at the time of death, a person is very much attached to the body. And that is why it is said that we will not give up the body because of bodily attachment. So when the subtle body will become purified, then the body will give us up. So this temporary material body is like a foreign dress. And that's how we need to give up this temporary, material body that is there. So this is what is actually, in this first paragraph, it's actually trying to say this. Let me just share the screen with you all. In the material world, the material nature displays wonderful workmanship by creating varieties of bodies for the living beings, according to the propensities for sense gratification. The living entity who wants to taste stool is given a material body that is suitable for eating stool, that of a hog. Similarly, one who wants to eat flesh and blood for other animals may be given the tiger's body, equipped with suitable teeth and claws. But the human being is not meant for eating flesh, nor does he have any desire to taste stool. Even in the most aboriginal state, human teeth are so made that they can chew and cut fruit and vegetables, although there are two canine teeth, so that primitive humans can eat flesh if they so desire. But in any case, the material bodies of all animals and men are foreign to the living entity. Foreign. Hai na? They change according to the living entity's desire for sense gratification. In the cycle of evolution, the living entities change bodies one after another. When the world was full of water, the living entity took an aquatic form. Then he passed to a vegetable life, from a vegetable life to a worm life, from a worm life to a bird life, from the bird life to an animal life, and from animal life to a human life form. The highest developed form is this human form, when it is possessed of a full sense of spiritual knowledge. The highest development of one's spiritual sense is described in this mantra. One should give up the material body, which will be turned to ashes, and allow the air of life to merge into the eternal reservoir of air. The living being's activities are performed within the body through the movements of different kinds of air, known as pranavayu. The yogis generally study how to control the air of the body. The soul is supposed to rise from one circle to the other, all those chakras, if you all know, of air to another until it rises to the Brahmarandhara, the highest circle. Brahmarandhara is over here, right on the top, the highest circle. From that point, the perfection yogi can transfer himself to any planet he likes. So see, all these yogic siddhis, somebody has, he can, become bigger than the biggest and smaller than the smallest, and he can travel in any planet he wants. He can fly also, all these things. The process is to give up one material body and enter into another. But the highest perfection of such changes occurs only when the living entity is able to give up the material body altogether, as suggested in this mantra, and enter into the spiritual atmosphere, where he can develop a completely different type of body, a spiritual body, which never has to meet death or change. So this is actually the prayer at the time of death. So what are we trying to do over here is, by studying spiritual, scriptures, we are also trying to enter, or have a spiritual body, which never has to meet death. So once a person reaches the supreme abode, then he does not have, these four things do not affect him: birth, death, old age, and diseases. So in the supreme abode of the Supreme Lord in Golok Vrindavan, there is no death, there is no birth, there are no diseases, and there is no old age. All these are in itself only very painful as such. Okay. Here in the material world, nature forces a living entity to change his body due to different desires for sense gratification. These desires are represented in the various species of life, from germs to the most perfected material bodies, those of Brahma and the demigods. Okay, again another word. I was confused with even Brahma also. Brahma, Brahman, Brahmin, Brahmanas, all these were very confusing to me in the initial stage of my Krishna consciousness. All of these living entities have bodies composed of matter in different shapes. The intelligent man sees oneness, not in the variety of the bodies, but in the spiritual identity. The spiritual spark, which is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, is the same whether he is in a body of a hog or in the body of a demigod. The living entity takes on different bodies according to his pious and vicious activities. The human body is highly developed and has full consciousness. According to the Bhagavad Gita, the most perfected man surrenders unto the Lord after many, many lifetimes of culturing. Bahunama janmanavante jnanavanma prapadyante vasudema sarvaiti samatma sudurlabha. The culture of knowledge reaches perfection only when the knower comes to the point of surrendering unto the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva. Otherwise, even after attaining knowledge of one's spiritual identity, if one does not come to the point of knowing that the living entities are eternal part and parcel of the whole, can never become the whole, one has to fall down again into the material atmosphere. Indeed, one must fall down even if he has become one with the Brahma Jyoti. So, see, what is Srila Prabhupada trying to explain, that how can one become one with the Brahma Jyoti? Because if you are a Brahmavadi, then you perfect that particular lifetime, and then you enter into the Brahman effulgence. Okay, but if you see, this is the contrast. This particular paragraph, this fourth paragraph, is speaking that contrast of the devotee's conclusion of his foreign dresses with the position of the Brahmans who do not realize the Shantaras. So this particular paragraph, it is actually talking about more about yogis and how they try to go at the time of death to some other planet of their own choice. And even the highest development, that is spiritual, whatever sense they have, is described in this mantra, that one should give up this material body. Why? Because this body is going to turn into ashes and is not going to allow us, this is going to allow, this particular material body will actually not give us the permanent solution. This material body at the time of death will again take another body. So, and that is why we need to actually understand that if I take up to the spiritual nature, or if I take up to spiritual knowledge, then I'll be able to understand that what is my position with the Supreme Lord. So this is what is being said in this paragraph. Let's see the next paragraph. So, as we have learned from the previous mantras, the Brahma Jyoti emanating from the transcendental body of the Lord is full of spiritual sparks that are individual entities with the full sense of existence. Sometimes these living entities want to enjoy their senses, and therefore they are placed in the material world to become false lords under the direction of the senses. The desire for lordship in the material disease of the living entity being for under the spell of sense enjoyment, he transmigrates through the various bodies manifested in the material world. Becoming one with the Brahma Jyoti does not represent mature knowledge. So see, this is a very nice striking sentence. Becoming one with the Brahma Jyoti does not represent mature knowledge. Then somebody might ask, then what is mature knowledge then? Then mature knowledge is that only by surrendering unto the Lord completely and developing one's sense of spiritual service does one reach the highest perfectional stage. So surrender is being asked over here. He is actually demanding surrender. Who is demanding surrender? Krishna is demanding surrender. Okay. So somebody read this paragraph. The next paragraph.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I'll read.
Yeah, Juhi Mataji, I was just about to tell you only to read this paragraph.
In this mantra, the living entity prays to enter the spiritual kingdom of God after relinquishing his material body and material air. The devotee prays to the Lord to remember his activities and the sacrifice he has performed before his material body is turned into ashes. He makes this prayer at the time of death with full consciousness of his past deeds and of their ultimate goal. One who is completely under the rule of material nature remembers the heinous activities he performed during the existence of his material body, and consequently he gets another material body after death. The Bhagavad Gita 8.6 confirms this truth. Yam yam vapi smaranam bhavam tyajatya ante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kunteya sadatat bhava bhavitah. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Thus, the mind carries the living entity's propensities into the next life.
Yes. So these propensities, are there, that whatever at the time of death, whatever you will remember, you will be in that same state. So, in this particular paragraph, the living entity is praying that, okay, I want to enter into the spiritual realm after giving up. So this word relinquishing means giving up. So after giving up this material body and this material air, I want to remember the activities of the Lord. I want to remember, the devotee is actually praying that to the Lord, that please remember what all sacrifices I have made, what all services I have done. So please, help me at the time of death. I want to remember you. So see, why is he actually even, requesting this? Because he wants to remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death. He does not have any ulterior motive. He's saying that at the time of death, we will remember that which we have sought shelter, most during our life. So अगर हम लोग ने इंद्र तृप्ति का शेल्टर लिया है तो हमें इंद्र तृप्ति ही याद आएगी. If we have sought shelter of sense gratification, then we'll remember about sense gratification only. Or if we are attached to somebody, then we'll remember that person only. But all my life, if I have all the time practiced remembering the Supreme Lord, serving the Supreme Lord, then my thought process also will be going to the Supreme Lord only. So this mantra, the living entity is making a prayer at the time of death that will full consciousness of whatever the past deeds and the ultimate goal. Please help me to remember you at the time of death. Because, if you do not remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death, then whatever you are remembering at the time of death, the next body will be, of that. So if you see this Yam Yam Vapi Smaranam shloka, just before this shloka, there is another shloka which says that अंत काले च माम एवं स्मरणम मुक्त्वा कलेवरम. अंत समय में जो कोई भी मेरा स्मरणम करेगा, whoever will think about me, स्मरणम कले मुक्तेवरम. So at the time of death, whatever you are thinking, you will be getting that only thing. If anybody is thinking about me, he will come to me. But if anybody is thinking about something else, then he will get that destination. So the last moments of death are very, very crucial. But it's exactly like, that example is given by one of the devotees I had heard very long back. He says that, for example, because this was a very striking example for me also during those days, initial days of my Krishna consciousness, where we were writing our examinations also. The sense of, for example, the whole year a particular student does not study at all. He does not even open his book. And final examinations, he goes to answer, his question paper. Will he be able to remember anything, or he'll be able to write anything? No, he'll not be able to write anything. He'll not be able to even write a single word because he has not practiced, memorizing those answers, or he's not practiced even mugging up or practicing even those mathematical equations as such. He's not going to. So what will happen is, he will leave his paper blank because he's never had this practice only at all. So lifetime is a preparation and death is an examination. So if we will not prepare the whole life, then at the time of, examination, which is death, then you will not excel. But let's say, okay, so this is one extreme. आपने prepare नहीं किया है and last minute में आपको भगवान याद भी कैसे आएंगे, But let's take another scenario where lifetime you have prepared, but at the time of death, आपको भगवान याद नहीं आते because you entered into coma, or somebody entered into, some very, unconscious state of mind, or somebody has some bodily difficulty, somebody's got paralyzed, somebody's not into full consciousness also. Then what will happen? At the time of death, if you have practiced your whole life, diligently, properly, and with full interest, then Krishna says that at the time of death, he will enter into the mind of that devotee and he will force that devotee to remember the Supreme Lord. So that merciful is the Supreme Lord, that he will help us to remember. And that is why, see, this devotee is also actually what is he doing? He's praying to the Lord that please help me to remember you at the time of death. So the Supreme Lord will help that devotee to remember him at the time of death. This is what is actually said into this particular text. Let's see the next text. So, unlike the simple animals who have no developed mind, the human being can remember the activities of his life like the dreams at night. Therefore, his mind remains surcharged with material desires, and consequently, he cannot enter into the spiritual kingdom with a spiritual body. The devotees, however, develop a sense of love for the God, for Godhead, by practicing devotional service to the Lord. Even if at the time of death the devotee does not remember his service to the Lord does not forget him. This prayer is given to remind the Lord of the devotee's sacrifices. But even if there is no such reminder, the Lord does not forget the service rendered by his pure devotee. So, see, in our Bhagavatam reading, we are just reading actually Bhishma Dev's stuti, how Bhishma Dev is actually lying on the bed of arrows, and he is praying to the Lord that and it was his ardent desire that the Lord be present before me at the time of death. And the Lord is not forgetting Bhishma Dev. And the Lord is standing face to face, at the time of death of Bhishma Dev. So the Lord is actually giving him that position because Bhishma Dev is a pure, unalloyed devotee of the Supreme Lord. And that is why the Lord does not forget his devotees at the time of death. So, let us contemplate on who all did the Supreme Lord help at the time of death. Can you all think of such examples? कि मृत्यु के समय पे भगवान आए इन लोगों को मदद करने के लिए. Any quick examples? That somebody is leaving the body. It can be a real life example also, a recent example also you can give. That such and such devotee was leaving his body just last year or 6 months before also. Those examples can be also given. You can give Shastric examples also from Ramayana.
Mataji, Ajamil.
Ha, Ajamil. Yes. He unknowingly is calling out, the name of his son. But the Lord took it positively, thinking that he's calling me only. Yeah, good example. Any more examples?
Mataji, a negative one, Jay Vijay, when they became Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyakashipu,
Yes.
they were evil, but they had been blessed. So when they died at the hands of the Lord, and they always thought of him negatively, but they thought of him.
Yes. There's also one nice example where the devotees were actually all the time thinking negatively. And but Jay Vijay, let us understand that Jay Vijay, they are the eternal associates of the Lord, and they came down only on the order of the Supreme Lord. So they came to assist him in his pastimes of वीर्य रस. भगवान को जब वीर्य रस चखना होता है तो उनके सामने कोई टक्कर का होना चाहिए. ये नहीं कि ऐसे thin lean person comes and Krishna one hook मार के उसको उड़ा देंगे, ऐसा नहीं है. So there is like a tumultuous fight between the two, where the devotee is smashing the Lord and the Lord is smashing the devotee. तो बोलते इसको वीर्य रस जब चखना होता है, then the Supreme Lord comes. Any more example where at the time of death the Lord actually came and favored that particular devotee?
Mataji, can Shishupal be the example?
Shishupal, again negative. He was pretty anti. Let us take examples who are favorable to the Lord and who have worshipped the Supreme Lord throughout and.
Mataji, can Gajendra be considered because he is in the hands of death?
Yes, Gajendra, yes, can be considered because he was King Indradumna in his past birth, and because of a particular curse, he was given the body of an elephant, an animal, but because he had worshipped the Supreme Lord in his previous birth, he remembered and intensely he prayed. And within some nanoseconds, the Supreme Lord comes and actually is. Gajendra is a good example. Yeah. Any more?
Mataji, can Dhruva Maharaj can be?
Dhruva Maharaj, no, because Dhruva Maharaj did not give up his body. He gave up the Supreme Law. He gave up his body in a very sound condition. So Dhruva is not an apt example over here. Some more examples you can think of. Jatayu. I can think of Jatayu also. Jatayu was actually in the service of the Lord and he did not give up his life till the time he thought that I should give up this message that, Ravana has taken Sita. And then he actually died in the lap of the Supreme Lord himself. I can think of Jatayu. Somebody else can think of some other Shastric examples.
Mataji, Bhishmadev.
I gave the example.
Bhishma.
Bhishmadev, I only gave the example of Bhishmadev. Somebody else was giving up his life and, the Lord personally came. Any more examples you all can think of?
Mataji, Haridas Thakur?
Yes, Haridas Thakur. Yes. Haridas Thakur. Who else was giving up his body and the Lord favored that particular devotee? So I can think of one very live example. I'll tell you all in Chopati temple.
Bharat Maharaj.
Bharat Maharaj, no, he was thinking about the deer. He was not thinking about the Supreme Lord. He got another body of a deer then. Okay, I can think of another, example that let me tell you that this is a very, very, striking example. His Grace Stoker Krishna Prabhu, most of you all might be knowing him. His Grace Stoker Krishna Prabhu was the personal servant of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. And he got struck with, cancer. And while leaving his body, he had all the devotees surrounded him. And even His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj was also there. So sometimes the Lord comes, the Lord will send his representatives also to help you to remember. But His Grace Stoker Krishna Prabhu was in full consciousness till the last minute. He was able to remember the Supreme Lord. So the favor comes in the Lord, maybe personally will come, the Lord will enter, the Lord will come through his devotees also, through his holy names also. So that's how the Lord will favor that particular devotee at the time of death. So this is one very striking example. There was one more example recently only, maybe I'll tell you, in the month of December, there was this Mataji. She left her body. She was actually struggling with cancer from 5 years. But at the time of death, she had all the devotees and she was in full consciousness and she died in that very beautiful consciousness also. She was in USA, I think. And very striking example I can think of this. Okay, let's go to the next text. The Lord clearly describes his intimate relationship with his devotees in the Bhagavad Gita. Even if one, so he's talking about apichetu duracharo, bhajate mam ananya bhav. Even if one commits the most abominable action, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is considered saintly because he is properly situated in his determination. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace, O son of Kunti. Declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. O son of Pritha, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, as well as Shudras, can attain the supreme destination. How much more this is of the righteous Brahmanas, the devotees and the saintly kings. Therefore, having come to this temporary miserable world, engaging in loving service unto me, engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee. So he's talking about man mana bhav, mad bhakto, madhya jiva namaskaru. My devotee offer obeisances to me and worship me, being completely absorbed in me. Surely you will come back to me. So there's a very nice, example where Krishna himself is telling, what is the right way to come to me? How can you, come to me? And Krishna will never forget, his services. So, if you see, through Krishna's eyes. So, if one is like Animisha, that, in Vishnu, actually, this Animisha and Nimisha, no, these words come in Vishnu Sahasranam. So, Animisha means the Lord keeps eyes always open to our service. भगवान जो है अपनी आंखें हमारी सेवा के लिए हमेशा खुली रखते हैं. And Nimisha means he will close his eyes to our mistakes. मतलब वो अपनी आंखें जब बंद कर देते हैं जब हम कोई गलती करते हैं तो. मतलब क्या, वो हमारी उन गलतियों को भी नजरअंदाज कर देते हैं. He will not look towards those mistakes that we have done. So, I like that sentence what I had heard from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. He says that Krishna's inner presence is not to catch us, but to coach us. So, this example of Animisha is that, Draupadi, when Krishna's finger was cut, she bandaged Krishna with that sari of hers. And Krishna, in return, gave her much more when she was in die-hard situation where she was being stripped into that, coat. And the example of Nimisha that I can think is that he is closing the eyes to her mistake. The best example I can think of is Putana. When she came, Krishna closed his eyes so that he could not see her faults. So, Krishna will reward every single service we do. And he does not even forget us, even when we forget him. So, why? Because he's always with us as Paramatma. He never gets upset with us. Oh, I'm very upset with this devotee. Good for nothing. इतना सब ज्ञान होने के बाद भी दारू पी रहा है. इतना सब ज्ञान होने के बाद भी लड़कीबाजी कर रहा है. इतना सब ज्ञान होते हुए भी चोरी कर रहा है. So, he will never, he never gets upset with us. Why? Because he is, ever waiting and he is ever willing, to accept us. So, nothing can stop Krishna from loving us. हर कंडीशन में, हर हालात में भगवान हमें प्रेम करते हैं. चाहे आप अच्छे बच्चे हो, चाहे आप अच्छे बच्चे नहीं भी हो, चाहे आप बगावत करते हो, चाहे आप उनसे प्रेम करते हो, हर हालत में भगवान हमसे प्रेम करते हैं. So, like nothing can stop sun from providing the light. So, also he is ever working. The sun, rises, falls. He will not say that ये दुष्ट व्यक्ति इसको मैं ना sunlight दूंगा ही नहीं. No, not like that. So, the Lord clearly, describes his intimate relationship with his devotees. Api setu suduracharo bhajate mane nibhak. And he's saying, kaun te prati janati. Boldly go and declare that my devotee will never perish. And he says even dukhale moha shashvatam. And then he's talking about manmana bhav mad bhakto. All these texts he's talking about. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains these verses very nicely. He says that, just give me 1 minute, okay? He says that one should regard a devotee of Krishna to be on the right path of the saints. हम सभी, साधु संतों को follow कर रहे हैं ना. Even though such a devotee may, seem to be, doing some obnoxious acts or a person of loose character, still, he should be regarded as a devotee who's on the bright path of the saints. And if you see a conditioned soul, he has the act of the, these double functions, or like he wants to maintain his body also and he wants self realization also. तो वो दोनों double function में है, तो थोड़ा, sometimes when you are doing multitasking, there might be an error some in one of the act what you are doing. अगर आप मान लो खाना भी बना रहे हो, फोन पे भी बात कर रहे हो, तो कभी कभी ऐसे भी हो सकता है कि खाना जल गया, कि आप फुल फोकस उस पे नहीं है, कि आप ये गैस पे भी काम कर रहे हो, वो गैस पे भी काम कर रहे हो, वो गैस पे भी काम कर रहे हो, or somebody is doing multitasking into his computer also. A particular message might go from one person to another, and a wrong message can also go. So these dual functions में भी थोड़ी गलतियां हो सकती है. So one must perform these two different functions along parallel lines, because the conditioned soul cannot give up the maintenance of his body. मुझे कमाना है, मुझे मेरी फैमिली को सस्टेनेंस करना है, and in that process then I get attached to many things, but still my journey for my self realization, I'm very much firm on this particular path. So the proportion of activities for maintenance of the body will decrease slowly how in proportion to the increase of devotional service. So material attachments धीरे धीरे कम होते जाएंगे जैसे जैसे devotional service बढ़ते जाएगी. So, and as long as this particular proportion of devotional service does not come to the right point, then there is a very chance of occasional exhibition of worldliness. कि I'm attached to this person, I'm attached to this, I'm attached to that way. So that is why such worldliness cannot continue for long, because by the grace of the Lord only, such perfections such imperfections will come to an end. बहुत जल्दी ये जो कुछ भी imperfections है वो जल्दी आ जाएंगे. For example, I have attachment to money, I have attachment to my wife, I have attachment to my children. ये धीरे धीरे खत्म होते जाएंगे. So if one is on the right path, even an occasional occurrence of this worldliness, it will not hamper his advancement to spiritual realization. So as somebody mentioned about the Ajamil story, right? So Ajamil story is like, Ajamil previously was a very nice Brahmana, and he was following, he was worshipping the Lord with full heart. Head and heart both were there. But what happened is, एक accident हो गया उसके साथ. He saw something, his eyes, his senses saw something, and then he went into the loop. But again, the Supreme Lord helped him to revive, and again he was able to attain the Supreme Lord. So this is what is being actually said into this this particular paragraph. This is a very wonderful paragraph. Actually, I like this paragraph very much. बहुत कुछ बढ़िया बताया है इस paragraph में. Okay. Then again, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains this verses that one should regard a devotee of Krishna to be in the right path of the saints, even if such a devotee may, be a durachar, a person of, loose character. One should try to understand the real purport of the word durachar. A conditioned soul has a double function. This is what I already explained actually. So the facilities of the devotional service are the facilities of devotional service are denied the impersonal because they are attached to Brahma Jyoti, teacher of the Lord. As suggested in the previous mantra, they cannot penetrate the Brahma Jyoti because they do not believe in the personality of Godhead. Their business is mostly word jugglery in mental speculation. Consequently, the impersonal pursue are fruitless labor as confirmed in the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So all the facilities suggested in this mantra can be easily obtained by constant contact with the supreme feature, the personal feature of the absolute truth. Devotional service to the Lord consists essentially of 9 activities. So these are 9 activities that are there: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam. So these 9 principles of devotional service, taken all together one by one, help a devotee to remain constantly in touch with God. In this way, at the end of life, it is easy for the devotee to remember the Lord. By adopting only one of these 9 principles, the following renowned devotees of the Lord were able to achieve the highest perfection. So, okay, they are saying that by hearing Lord Parikshit Maharaj perfected, and by glorying Shukdev Goswami perfected. Okay, so actually the explanation of this mantra and of practicality of all the mantras of the Vedic hymn is summarized in the Vedanta Sutra and properly explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of the Vedic tree of wisdom. In Srimad Bhagavatam, this particular mantra is explained in the question and answers between Parikshit Maharaj and Shukdev Goswami at the very beginning of their meeting. Hearing and chanting of the science of God is the basic principle of devotional service. The complete Bhagavatam was heard by Parikshit Maharaj and chanted by Shukdev Goswami. Parikshit Maharaj inquired from Shukdev Goswami, and Shukdev Goswami was a greater spiritual master than any great yogi of transcendental service, transcendentalist of this time. Parikshit Maharaj's main question was, what is the duty of every man, specifically at the time of death? Shukdev Goswami answered, Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagwan Ishvaro Hari Shrottavya Kirtavyascha Smartavyascha Chetattabhyam. Everyone who desires to be free from all anxieties should always see. We are all the time surrounded by Shoka, Moha and Bhaya. Okay, so how to come out from that? Everyone who desires to be free from all anxieties should always hear about, glorify and remember the personality of Godhead, which means only hear means Shravanam, glorify means Kirtanam, and remember means Smaranam. Who is the supreme director of everything, the extinguisher of all difficulties, and the super soul of all living entities. The so-called human society, I think we need to break over here. I mean, we're going beyond time, and I feel that devotees might just get overwhelmed with all this. So I think we'll continue from these paragraphs. I halt over here at this paragraph. We halt at paragraph 9. I will explain from 10, 11 and 12, 13, 14, 15 in the next class. Is that okay? Or should I continue? Whatever you all say, I'm ready to continue.
Yes, Mataji, okay.
Devotees, other devotees, what is your say on this? We are left with only 5 more paragraphs. Should I continue or should I, just halt over here?
Mataji, would request to halt, please.
I'm sorry?
We request to halt.
Okay, we request to halt. Okay, fine. Because I feel that, just rushing through this is not going to make sense. So let's halt over here at this particular 11th paragraph or the 9th paragraph. Yeah, we are at the 9th paragraph. We'll halt over here and we'll take it up from the 10th paragraph. Okay, dear devotees. Anybody has any queries? So I want to make some announcements before I forget, because last time I was forget. We are on the, conclusion of this particular book, Shri Upanishad, and it has been a very beautiful journey with all of you all. Next Saturday, we'll be concluding with this ISHOPANISHAD. And it will take me only 1 hour to conclude. But the next 1 hour, I would request everybody to have your doubts cleared about all the mantras that we have discussed so far. Right from the introduction to mantra 18. Also, when will you all have doubts? If you all have, simultaneously gone and written those question answers that were there into your handbooks. And if you all have any query regarding those question and answers, then please feel free to get those cleared. Why? Because if a wrong understanding is given in the paper, then the whole question will be marked as wrong. You might get maybe 1 or 2 marks, but you will not get full marks. So if somebody is aiming at getting full marks, then get those things cleared. That is my understanding correct about this particular question? Fine.